Rocky is my favorite movie character of all time, and Rocky IV is the Rocky movie that I have rewatched the most times, and last night, Sylvester Stallone debuted his director's cut of Rocky IV. So let's talk about it. Hi, my name is Sean, and I love to talk about movies and TV way too much. With that in mind, go ahead and join me down below in the comment section. If you have seen Rocky IV, Rocky vs. Drago, let me know what you thought about it down below in the comment section. A ton of people have been messaging me about it, so I wanted to make sure I shared my thoughts on it. The way this video is going to work is the first section, I'm going to talk about basically what's different about it. Not really kind of like spoiling any of the changes, but talking about how the nature of this director's cut versus other director's cut, because director's cut can mean a lot of different things. So I'm going to talk about specifically what that means. And the back half, I'll talk about what did I actually think about this version of the film and the fact that it exists. I'm not going to give like a rating score or anything like that, but I'm going to give my thoughts on how good it works and stuff like that. But to reiterate this, I absolutely love the Rocky Balboa character. Stallone's my favorite actor. Rocky's my favorite movie character of all time. And I love that even over the last few years, as I've had this channel, we've had the Creed movies come out and get to see this character throughout so many different stages of life. When I got married, the first movie I saw with my wife, during our honeymoon, we went to go see Rocky Balboa. That's how important Rocky is to my life. During my honeymoon, it's like, I don't know what other people do on their honeymoons. I went to go see the new Rocky movie, and that my wife went along with that plan to like knew I had gotten the right wife that understood me. And so Rocky is a huge, huge part of my life. And in fact, right over there on my wall, I have a Rocky IV poster. That is my love for Rocky and Rocky IV as a movie. I literally, the one full-size poster in my office is Rocky IV right over there. So let's get started talking about what this director's cut is. And essentially, Stallone, when COVID happened, he was working on the movie Samaritan. Production got shut down when the world got shut down, so he was at home and he was trying to decide what to do with his time, and he went, what's a movie that I have that's very popular that I think I have a different interpretation of now and would approach very differently today versus when I originally did it. And the movie that he picked was Rocky IV. And Rocky IV, of course, is quintessential 80s sports movie. I mean, it's montages, there's a robot, there's dance sequences, it's US versus Russia, it's patriotism, and it's like peak Stallone and peak Stallone-isms. And so then he kind of had this approach of like, okay, what if I reapproached the material and tried to tell it the way I would tell it now, that more aligned with the way I directed Rocky Balboa versus me in the mid-80s. So it's not just that he added more footage into it. It's not that just some deleted scenes were put back into the movie. He dramatically reworks the entire film. It's the exact same story, the same exact beats, but everything is cut just a little bit differently. So the movie starts, and instead of having two boxing gloves explode with Eye of the Tiger playing, kind of showing you this rock and roll themed sports movie, it starts off and goes a lot more into kind of what happened in Rocky III with the fall of Rocky and the friendship of Apollo Creed, establishing that as kind of the baseline for the film. So totally, it changes dramatically very early on, and I think that's the big change, is that he tried to remove as much of kind of the 80s flash, the 80s cheese as he could, and so early on, like the robot, totally removed from the movie. So instead of starting off and doing the Rocky III stuff and then going into Paulie's birthday where there's a dancing robot that appears all throughout the entire movie, that's gone, and it goes straight into Apollo and his struggle with retirement and no longer being on top of the world. And it makes that the focus more so than some of the politics or other things. It really leans into Apollo as kind of this person that's lived by the warrior's way and is a fighter for life, and he doesn't know what to do with himself not on the top of the world, which was in the theatrical version, but it like triples down on it. So early on, There's extra scenes of Rocky talking with Apollo about whether they should do the fight, whether Rocky's going to do the fight. There's extra scenes between Rocky and Adrian about Adrian trying to convince Rocky to get Apollo not to do it. There's just a little bit more of everything in the way that it plays out. And then sequences that are in both movies that there's not really, like the actual fight with Drago and the Living in America dance sequence, it's just cut differently. So you follow very much Drago. The sequence starts with Ivan Drago under the stage, and you're following him as this person being lifted up as he into the middle of this dance sequence. And so it's the same sequence that we've seen many times before, but from a different perspective, with just a little bit of extra oomph there. And that's what you have to, like, understand about it. It's just like what you've seen before, but with a different emphasis. And then there's like you have Apollo's funeral, so it's just extended, so you get more time with everyone's reaction to the death of Apollo. And so emotionally, you spend a bit more time on it. In the fights, they're the same outcome, but everything's cut just a little bit differently. So there's moments where it just pauses for a little bit to linger on Apollo getting knocked down. There's little extra lines of dialogue or changed lines of dialogue that Apollo says to Rocky. The way that the final moments of the first fight is just cut differently, that puts a different emphasis on why Rocky did what he did, when he did it, and what was the amount of time that passed between, oh crap, Apollo's in trouble, and Rocky throwing in the towel and him falling down. Just changes it just a little bit. And then as you move into the second half of the film, I mean, you still have all your montages. They're all still there. They're just cut a little bit differently, or some of the coloring is different. Things will be in black and white, or maybe it'll have like show Rocky's face while kind of showing the old footage. So it's just same thing, but different. And once again, little few extra moments all throughout the film that pauses for character stuff in it. And then, you know, as you move into the final fight, there's several times where there's like Rocky's voice in his head talking to himself. Some stuff that you saw in Rocky Balboa, you see a little bit of that in this version of the film. And the speech at the end, it has the same punchline, but it's a different take, so the tone is different. And it's showing extra footage of what was kind of going on with the other people in the room and the Russian government. And it just lingers on a few things it didn't linger on before. So none of it actually changes any plot points dramatically, but the tone is very different. It plays very different because of what it shows you, what it emphasizes, and kind of how the moments play out. It's you know, people are asking me, oh, so is it like Batman v Superman? Is it like the Suicide Squad extended cut? Is it like Zack Snyder's Justice League? No, it's nothing like any of that. Because it's the same director. It's the same story. It's just him going back through all the footage and going, let's use the other takes. Let's use the other tone we could have used. And trying to take this beloved cheesy 80s sports movie and make it a little bit more dramatic. Make it have a little bit more emotion to it rather than as much dancing robots. Changes the vibe just a little bit. And so it's tough to say exactly how it's different. Also, they promoted it as having 40 minutes of new footage. And I talked with a lot of people last night, and we're not sure exactly what they meant by that. The runtime of the original, in the interview before it started, Stallone said, yeah, you know, I was cutting it the first time. I just wanted to be quick, get to the point, move quick, get to the next beat, get to the next montage. I didn't want to linger on anything too long. I just wanted to be fast moving. The original was 92 minutes. This version, 94 minutes. It's 2 minutes longer. So this idea that like, oh, the other original one was like fast moving, and this one like is a much slower pace. Like, no, it's not dramatically different. But there's a ton of alternative footage. There's a ton of alternative takes, and I don't know if it adds up to 40 minutes. But you think like at the beginning of it, it shows very different footage from Rocky 3. The robot dancing is all that. Paulie's birthday is all gone. And so then you have a different scene in its place. And so it just changes the vibe. It changes what characters are focused on. There's a little bit more of all the characters, except Paulie. I think there's less Paulie. Everyone else I think there's a little bit more of. And there's less of Rocky Jr. Most everyone else, there's more of them. But that means something was removed too. All throughout the movie, there's little lines of dialogue that are gone. Music cues are changed. And so it's a very interesting experience because you're watching the same movie in same beats in the same order, but just alternative footage showing it in different way that it plays out. It's an interesting experience to watch it. Same story, same idea, different tone. So that's kind of how it plays. That's what it's like. From there, let's talk about what did I think about Rocky vs. Drago. And I loved seeing Rocky IV on the big screen. And as a Fathom event, it was a legitimate Fathom event where they had a 30-minute interview with Stallone from that day talking about why they did what they did and the changes. And so, I mean, it was a legit Fathom event that was excited. It was a packed theater. People excited to see this for the first time. So loved seeing Rocky IV with an audience for the very first time. Loved seeing it on the big screen for the first time. It plays very different when it's big screen, which we all know this, but when you watch a movie that you've seen 50 plus times and see it on the big screen for the first time and it's like guys covered in blood and like there's blood all on the ring, it just plays different. I don't know if that was different footage or if that was like legitimately for the first time I noticed how bloody this movie was, but it just plays different. And when they get punched in the face and you have the audience like, ooh, you feel it a little bit. This was great to see it in the theater. I love that we're seeing all this footage that we didn't see before. I actually kind of love these types of director's cuts where it's the actual director trying to bring something new to the material. And like I said, there's a lot of new scenes, new little bits, alternate takes. It's the same, but it is a different experience watching the film. All of that said, it's a very disorienting, jarring watch, at least for me. As someone that's watched Rocky IV 50 plus times, maybe 100 plus times. I don't know. I watched that movie a lot. I put it on a lot when I'm working out. And it's just very disorienting when there's a movie you know so well. And a movie that's pretty simple. Because it's not like a complex plot with a lot of things happening. It's like a fairly straightforward story that's linear, that doesn't have multiple perspectives. Very straightforward. And every scene has a different cadence to it, the way that it flows. And it pauses and lingers on different things, and the energy is different. And sometimes you watch the scenes, you're just waiting for the music to hit hard at a moment, and it hits differently, or it's an entirely different music cue. It's an interesting experience. It's an odd experience to watch it. And having only seen it once, like I loved the experience of watching it, I don't know that it fully worked for me. I don't know that it pays off in the end. Like, as the big discussion I was having with people online last night is that I think I liked the extra little bits more than I liked the reworking. There's a few times in the fights where I think he made a moment hit harder. There's a few things that I thought did add something, but for the most part, it just kind of felt a little bit like someone trying really hard to find a new tone that wasn't really there. Because he wrote the movie in the middle, like he wrote the movie with a certain mindset, he directed it that way, he edited it that way, and then 35 years later he's like, what if this was actually more like the original Rocky? What if this was more like Rocky Balboa? But I don't know that he actually shot it that way. And so he's trying to find slower emotional moments that weren't really there, and using footage that 35 years ago he thought, I don't think that's the best take. I don't think that's the best way to go, and swapping out something that a lot of people have loved for 35 years, as cheesy as some of it is, for a more serious scene that a lot of times it felt like it was kind of repeating what we already got. There's a lot more of like, Apollo's actually doing this because he's struggling with retirement, and he's struggling with that inner battle of like he wants to be on top and he's not okay with not being there. His ego can't take the fact that Rocky's on top and he's not. He can't take the fact that that Drago isn't taking him serious enough, so he has to go in there. Right. Right. I mean, Rocky states that very clearly in the original version, and then as he goes into the ring, like, man, I feel born again. It was really clear, and so you don't need 3 extra scenes repeating that concept. It doesn't add something new to the film that wasn't there before. It's not like a new subplot. And so a lot of the moments I did like them, but they didn't dramatically change the film for me. So it's more like a novelty to me. When I think, what am I going to rewatch next time I'm going to watch this movie? I'm more normally going to watch the original cut. That I think is just a little bit more of a holistic, tonally consistent film. Whereas this one feels a little bit odd. Like it's competing with itself a bit. Because when you have the movie and it is an inherently kind of cheesy film. There's certainly a lot of cheese in this concept of it's like a revenge movie as a boxing film, America versus Russia, and, you know, Rocky's climbing mountains and screaming Drago while Drago is running on treadmills. And I think they might have cut the steroids out. I think they might have cut out the overt steroid use out of it. So that there's a lot. It's tough to say. Watching it just one time. There's so many little things that were just cut, and other little things that were added in that it's almost tough to like what was and wasn't there. But it's a movie that's kind of inherently cheesy. And so when you try and reshape it to be like a serious character study about getting older, and then you still have the montages, and you still have some of this other stuff, it plays like I wasn't thinking they were going to do the car montage with all the footage from Rocky 1, 2, and 3. I didn't think they were going to do that one because it wouldn't fit the tone they'd established in the previous part of the film. And then you get there, and then we do the car montage. The montage is still there. And so they didn't find an alternative way to do that moment that fit the new tone. It was so it just felt like the tone was competing. So I didn't think it was as tonally consistent, and it was kind of just felt odd because of that. Likewise, like as I keep saying, if you've seen something 50 times, you're watching it and you're expecting something. You're expecting a cadence, a beat, the line to drop, the punch to hit, the music to come in, and you're watching it and it doesn't happen. It throws you off a little bit, and that's what this felt like to me, unfortunately. So, at the end of the day, I love that I get to see this alternative version. At the end of the day, if you're a Rocky fanatic like me, you need to watch it. But if you're just kind of the casual movie fan, this isn't really for you. This is a novelty. It's a gift to the fans. It's one of these weird, odd perks of COVID that we got this little experiment. And I love that Stallone did the experiment. I just don't think it really fully worked, but I love that it exists. And I would love it if you made a third version where he just went, okay, let's stay with the original version. And instead of reworking the movie, let's just add some of this stuff back in there. And so you have the version of this movie that's like an hour and 45 minutes. So add 15 minutes to the original runtime with these little bits in there. I think that would have played better. I think it would have worked better because the reworking and let's cut the robot out and let's do it. It just felt like it was trying to make some pieces fit that didn't quite fit. There's even some stuff at the beginning where there was very light on music. Where I was like, did they not have the rights to the music? Could they not use this? Could not use that? And then later in the movie, they did use music. And it was like, they could have used music. So it was just hollow at times. It felt hollow. But then we also get stuff where, they're still doing the montages and stuff with the music. And so, I don't know, it was weird. I wonder also if my theater's sound mix was off. It was pretty quiet. And so during the dialogue scenes, I whenever I go to the movies, I take a protein bar with me to get myself, because having my midlife crisis at the times I need to eat lots of protein. And so I went to open it. My wife was like, no, it's too loud. It's too loud. They're only talking right now. Don't open that now. And she wouldn't let me open the wrapper until it got away from a dialogue scene because the dialogue scenes were so quiet. And then when it was kind of the loud montage stuff, it wasn't really that loud. And so I think even my theater might have hurt some of it a little bit, that the sound didn't play right, that the music cues weren't loud enough, the punches didn't hit hard enough, and that might have affected my experience a little bit. But so I don't know. I hope you kind of like understand. I love that I got to see it in the theater. I love that this thing, it exists. If you're a Rocky fan, I think you should check it out because you'll probably enjoy these little bits. As for do you think this version works as a whole, I think it's going to be split down the middle. I talked to a bunch of people last night, and it seemed like a lot of people really thought it was awesome getting more character moments. And a lot of people also were like, you know, I liked seeing the footage. I don't think it worked as a version though. And I think I'm in that category. Especially since that's what I've been saying for 10 minutes. But I just don't think it fully came together as a new version, though I loved seeing the footage though. There you have it. There's my kind of take on Rocky vs. Drago, the ultimate director's cut of Rocky IV. An interesting experiment that I don't know that it fully worked for me, unfortunately. Let me know what you thought down below. I've done some Rocky rankings before. You can see my movies ranking and I don't remember what it was, my other ranking right over there. Thank you guys so much for watching, and keep talking movies too much.